Massive stone structures encoded a secret language of the stars. Humanity's earliest temples were far more than places of ceremony. They were sophisticated celestial calculators built with a precision that defies our understanding of the ancient world. From the rolling hills of Turkey to the plains of England, our ancestors embedded a deep knowledge of the cosmos into stone, aligning massive monuments with the sun, moon, and stars. By the end of this journey, you will see the night sky through the eyes of a Neolithic builder and understand a lost chapter in human genius. Why would hunter-gatherers pour their energy into tracking celestial cycles? And what profound truth about time itself did they discover that we have since forgotten? What part of our own connection to the universe do you feel has been lost to time 11,000 years ago? A community gathered on a windswept hill in Turkey. They were not farmers living in a settled town. They were hunter-gatherers, people whose lives were spent following the migrations of animals and the growth of wild plants. Yet they chose this place to erect something impossible, a temple of staggering complexity built with stones so massive they seem to belong to a later age. This is Göbekli Tepe. Its circular enclosures, defined by towering T-shaped pillars weighing many tons, stand as a profound question carved in limestone. Why here and why then? The answer seems written not just in the stone but in the stars above it. Each massive pillar is more than a post, it is a canvas. Elaborate carvings of scorpions, foxes, and vultures cover their surfaces, creatures that may have served as symbols for the constellations these ancient peoples saw in the night sky. Researchers from the German Archaeological Institute have studied the precise arrangement of these pillars and found a potential celestial map etched into the very layout of the site. One particular ring, known as Enclosure D, appears to be meticulously aligned with the rising point of the star Sirius. For cultures across the ancient world, the heliacal rising of Sirius, its first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility, was a crucial event. It marked the coming of seasonal rains, the flooding of rivers, a turning point in the great cycle of the year. To build a permanent observatory for this event before the invention of writing or the wheel suggests a staggering priority. It forces us to ask, what was the true catalyst for civilization? Was it not simply the discovery of farming, but a deeper, more spiritual need to understand our place in the cosmos? The very act of building Göbekli Tepe, of aligning tons of stone with the motion of a distant star, hints that the human mind first became organized not just around food, but around time itself. This celestial knowledge, encoded in the world's oldest temple, would become the blueprint for monuments across the globe. Across the sea and millennia later, another stone circle whispers of the same celestial obsession. On the windswept Salisbury Plain in England, Stonehenge stands as an icon of prehistoric mystery. Most of us recognize it as a massive solar calendar, its central axis perfectly aligned with the rising sun on the summer solstice. Yet this familiar idea is only the surface of a far deeper calculation. The full monument operates like a Neolithic computer, its programming written in sarsen and bluestone. Recent research reveals that the arrangement of these stones tracks not only the sun but the moon's most subtle dance. Every 18.6 years, the moon reaches a point in its cycle known as a lunar standstill, rising and setting at its most extreme northern and southern limits on the horizon. The architects of Stonehenge seem to have encoded this long, slow rhythm into their design. Archaeoastronomers like Professor Timothy Darvill suggest the monument could have been used to predict eclipses, events that occur only when the sun and moon cycles intersect at precise nodes. Imagine the power this knowledge would have held, the sudden blackening of the sun, the day turning to an eerie twilight, all foretold by the silent, patient stones. This predictive capability likely relied on the Aubrey holes, a ring of 56 pits encircling the site. By moving marker stones from one pit to another each year, keepers of this ancient science could have tracked the complex interplay of solar and lunar cycles, integrating them into a single, grand celestial clock. This was not simple stargazing, it was a monumental achievement in empirical science, a deep understanding of celestial mechanics accomplished without writing or lenses. What kind of society nurtured such thinker-builders, these astronomer priests who devoted lifetimes to observing the sky? Their answers are not in scrolls, but in the alignments they left behind, pointing us toward a forgotten age of global sky watchers. Far to the west, in the lush Boyne Valley of Ireland, another stone sentinel holds a secret that arrives with the winter sun. Newgrange is a massive, circular mound older than Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza. From the outside, it appears as a great, grass-covered hill, but within lies a long, narrow passage leading to a central chamber. This was not merely a resting place, it was a meticulously engineered device for capturing a single, glorious moment of light. For just a few days around the winter solstice, as the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, a miraculous event occurs. A sliver of sunlight penetrates a special opening above the entrance known as a roof box. This single beam of light travels down the 60-foot-long passage, piercing the deep darkness of the inner chamber for a fleeting 17 minutes. In the heart of the tomb, the sun illuminates intricate spiral carvings etched into the stone, patterns that may represent the sun itself, or the endless cycles of time, life, and death. This was no happy accident of construction. To achieve this precise alignment required generations of patient sky watching and a profound understanding of solar movement. The architects had to calculate the exact angle of the sun's rise on the shortest day of the year and then orient their entire structure to meet it. The resulting spectacle was surely more than a technical display. It was a deeply spiritual event. In the depths of winter, when the world seemed to be dying, the people gathered to witness the sun reborn in the heart of their most sacred space. The returning light in the chamber would have been a powerful symbol of hope, a promise that the cold and dark would not last forever. It was a cosmic drama made tangible, a direct conversation between humanity and the heavens. What ceremonies unfolded in that sun-drenched chamber, and what songs were sung to welcome the returning light. The silent stones of Newgrange hold those memories, pointing toward a shared human impulse that connected cultures across the ancient world. This reverence for the sky was not confined to one island or one continent. It was a global phenomenon, a fundamental part of our collective past. This same fusion of earth and sky echoes from a different kind of sanctuary, one built not by anonymous hunter-gatherers but by the celebrated civilization of ancient Greece. The Oracle of Delphi was considered the very navel of the world, a place where the divine will was made audible. Here, the celestial logic of earlier monuments evolved into a more complex system, intertwining astronomy with the very breath of the planet. The Pythia, the priestess who delivered the famous prophecies, would sit upon a tripod over a fissure in the rock, and geological studies suggest that light hydrocarbon gases, like ethylene, rising from this fault line may have induced the trance-like state essential to her visions. This was prophecy powered by the Earth itself, yet the sanctuary's design reveals a profound celestial dimension. The entire complex was not arbitrarily placed. The pathway known as the Sacred Way, which pilgrims climbed to reach the temple, is theorized by some researchers to be a terrestrial mirror of the Milky Way, a shimmering road in the sky. Key structures within the sanctuary appear aligned with the rising of specific constellations, such as Lyra, the harp of the mythic musician Orpheus. These alignments corresponded with significant dates in the Greek religious calendar, turning the entire site into a grand cosmic clock. The priests of Apollo, who interpreted the Pythia's often cryptic utterings, were therefore more than spiritual leaders. They were the guardians of this sacred geography, masterfully blending observations of the stars with the potent geological forces under their feet. Their authority was rooted in a demonstrated ability to read the cosmos, to predict celestial events that would then be seen as validating the oracle's divine power. This was a holistic world. You were a crack in the earth, the path of a star, and the fate of a king were all threads in the same cosmic fabric. It compels us to wonder how many other sacred sites were chosen not just for their beauty or convenience, but for this rare convergence of terrestrial energy and celestial order. The same celestial conversation echoed across the Atlantic, where the Maya and their successors engineered a spectacle of light and shadow for the ages. At Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of Kukulkan, a towering ziggurat of geometric perfection, transforms into a cosmic serpent during the equinoxes. As the sun sets on these 2 days of perfect balance between light and dark, a breathtaking illusion unfolds. A slithering chain of 7 triangles of light and shadow cascades down the northern staircase, connecting the temple at the summit with a massive stone serpent head at the base. This is the feathered serpent god Kukulkan descending from the heavens to visit the earth. This was no happy alignment but a feat of architectural and astronomical genius, calculated with stunning precision. The pyramid itself is a mathematical representation of the solar year. Its 4 sides each have 91 steps, and when you add the single shared step at the top platform, the total is 365. Every facet of its design was a testament to a deep, codified understanding of time. The Maya were not merely observers of the sky, they were master calculators. Their surviving codices, books made of bark paper, reveal complex tables that track the cycles of Venus with an accuracy of 1 day in 5,000 years. They could predict solar eclipses and wove together multiple calendar systems, one for the 260-day sacred cycle and another for the 365-day solar year, which synchronized in a grand cycle lasting 52 years. The pyramid was a functioning cosmological model, a stone embodiment of their universe where the gods themselves seemed to walk the earth. This profound knowledge was the bedrock of their society, dictating the timing of harvests, ceremonies, and the authority of their rulers. The power to predict the movements of the heavens was the ultimate political and spiritual authority. Yet this invites a haunting question. How did such a sophisticated civilization, so deeply attuned to the cycles of the cosmos, eventually face decline? The answer may lie in the very rigidity of their cosmic order. When a long-term drought, a deviation from the predictable cycles they had so meticulously charted, gripped the land, it may have shattered the fundamental contract between the rulers and the gods they claimed to command. The descending serpent, a symbol of divine connection, ultimately invites us to ponder the complex relationship between celestial knowledge, earthly power, and the resilience of a society built upon reading the stars. But the celestial conversation was not confined to grand temples and pyramids. A discovery in a German forest revealed that this knowledge could be held in the palm of your hand. The Nebra sky disk, a bronze circle inlaid with shimmering gold, was found by treasure hunters and is now recognized as the oldest known portable map of the heavens. Crafted around 1600 BC, its surface tells a complex story. A cluster of 7 stars almost certainly represents the Pleiades, a group that has served as a seasonal marker for countless cultures. A large circle and a crescent shape depict the sun and moon, but the most telling features are the golden arcs added to its edges later in its life. These arcs precisely mark the solstitial sunrises and sunsets, the farthest points the sun travels along the horizon throughout the year. This was not merely a symbolic picture, it was a functional, sophisticated instrument. By aligning the disk with the landscape, a Bronze Age astronomer could use it to synchronize the lunar calendar with the solar year. This was a vital calculation, the key to knowing precisely when to plant and when to harvest, making the difference between a community thriving or facing hardship. The disk's value is underscored by its materials, bronze and gold, suggesting it was owned by a person of immense importance, perhaps a chieftain or a spiritual leader. Their power would have been rooted in this demonstrated ability to read the sky, to literally hold the cosmos in their hands and predict the turning of the seasons. This object masterfully blurs the line between a scientific tool and a sacred talisman. It represents a democratization of celestial knowledge, moving it from the fixed, communal space of a stone circle into the possession of an elite few. What ceremonies surrounded its use, and what songs were sung as its golden face caught the first light of the solstice sun? The Nebra sky disk is a powerful reminder that the human drive to track the cosmos took many forms, from monuments that touched the sky to a metal disk that fit inside a leather bag. High on a sun-baked butte in Chaco Canyon, a sliver of light performs an ancient ritual. The ancestral Pueblones engineered a masterpiece of celestial observation on Fajada Butte, where 3 massive stone slabs lean against a cliff. Behind them, spiral petroglyphs are carved into the rock face, silent and waiting. At noon on the summer solstice, a brilliant dagger of sunlight pierces through the carefully positioned slabs, slicing directly through the heart of the largest spiral. When the winter solstice arrives, the performance changes, with 2 distinct daggers of light perfectly framing the same carved symbol. This is the sun dagger, a phenomenon lost for centuries and only rediscovered in the 1970s. It was far more than a beautiful spectacle. It was a sophisticated cultural calendar etched directly into the landscape. The precise alignment did not merely mark the solstices, it also signaled the equinoxes and may have even tracked the moon's slow 18.6-year cycle. This required an immense collective effort, generations of patient sky watching to understand the sun's shifting path so completely that they could orchestrate light and shadow with such flawless accuracy. For the people of Chaco Canyon, this was not abstract science, it was the rhythm of life itself. The dagger of light told them when to plant, when to harvest, and when to gather for the ceremonies that bound their community together. They embedded the cosmic order into the very rock of their homeland, turning a cliff face into a sacred clock. What must it have felt like to stand in that exact spot as the light descended, a moment of perfect alignment witnessed by the entire community? The silence of the canyon today holds that memory, yet this brilliant tradition did not last forever. The complex society of Chaco Canyon, with its great houses and celestial markers, was eventually abandoned. A prolonged period of environmental hardship, a shift in climate that brought persistent drought, likely strained their way of life. The very cosmic order they had so meticulously recorded in stone may have seemed to falter, challenging the foundations of their world. The knowledge that created the sun dagger faded into the rock, a transient yet stunning testament to a people who sought to pin the turning of the heavens to the earth beneath their feet. High in the thin air of the Peruvian Andes, the Incan citadel of Machu Picchu clings to a misty ridge. Here, a masterfully carved granite pillar rises from the living rock, known as the Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun. Its name was not mere poetry, it was a statement of profound responsibility. The Inca believed this stone literally tethered the sun to the earth, preventing our star from wandering too far away into the void and ensuring the vital return of the seasons. This was more than an observatory, it was an anchor for the cosmos itself. During the equinoxes, when day and night hang in perfect balance, the sun would position itself almost directly overhead, and the pillar would cast no shadow at all. In that moment of suspended light, the stone appeared to fulfill its cosmic duty, holding the sun in its celestial path. Every angle and plane of the Intihuatana was precisely engineered, aligned not only with the solstices but with the cardinal directions, integrating the entire universe into a single, sacred point of stone. For the Inca, an empire that mastered the vertical world of the Andes, this celestial knowledge was the bedrock of survival. Their breathtaking agricultural terraces, which step down the mountain slopes, were scheduled by the stars. The timing of planting and harvest, the flow of water through stone channels, the very authority of their emperor, the Sapa Inca, who was considered a child of the sun, all flowed from this demonstrated ability to read the heavens. The Intihuatana was the ultimate expression of a living cosmology, a world where humanity did not merely watch the sky, but actively participated in maintaining the cosmic order. This sacred connection, however, faced a deliberate and systematic challenge. With the Spanish conquest came a campaign to dismantle this worldview. Conquistadors and priests, viewing such stones as objects of pagan belief, sought to erase this knowledge, destroying countless Intihuatanas across the empire. The survival of the one at Machu Picchu is a small miracle, likely spared only because the remote city was abandoned and forgotten by the outside world. What fragments of this cosmic science survive? They live on in the enduring traditions of Andean communities, in the stonework itself, and in the silent, steadfast alignment of the Hitching post. It stands today not just as a relic, but as a lasting testament to a civilization that saw itself as a vital thread in the fabric of the universe, tasked with the sacred duty of tying the sun to the earth. The ancient city of Babylon hummed with a singular ambition, reaching for the heavens with a structure of almost unimaginable scale. The Etimenanke, its great ziggurat, was a colossal mountain of baked brick, its 7 terraced levels climbing skyward in a profound architectural statement. This was the legendary Tower of Babel, a stairway not meant for human pride but for divine connection. At its summit, far above the bustling city, stood a sacred shrine, a place where the earthly and celestial realms were believed to touch. But this lofty perch served a dual, deeply practical purpose. It was the perfect platform for the Chaldean priests, the master astronomers of their age, to conduct their nightly vigil over the stars. Removed from the dust and fires of the plain, they enjoyed an unobstructed view of the entire horizon, a necessity for tracking the precise movements of planets and the timing of celestial events. Their observations were not casual glances, they were a disciplined, state-sponsored science. For years, for decades, these priestly scholars meticulously recorded everything they saw on thousands of clay tablets, using the precise wedge-shaped script of cuneiform. They charted the predictable wanderings of Venus, noted the ominous dimming of Mars, and calculated the recurring rhythm of lunar eclipses. Their greatest intellectual achievement was recognizing a cycle known as the Saros, a period of approximately 18 years after which the Sun, Moon, and Earth returned to nearly the same relative geometry, causing eclipses to repeat. This predictive power was immense. To foresee the Moon being swallowed by the Earth's shadow was to demonstrate a direct line to the gods themselves. This celestial knowledge was the ultimate source of authority, guiding the decisions of kings and the fate of empires. It was these priest astronomers who gave us the base 60 system we still use today, dividing a circle into 360 degrees and an hour into 60 minutes. Every time you check the clock, you are reading a fragment of their ancient cosmic code. The Ziggurat, therefore, was more than a temple. It was an instrument of both prophecy and control. Its towering form physically embodied a hierarchy of knowledge, where a select few at the top interpreted the will of the heavens to govern the many below. What did it feel like to be one of those chosen individuals, climbing that sacred staircase under a blanket of stars, carrying the weight of an empire's destiny on your shoulders? These priest astronomers formed the intellectual bedrock of early civilization, a bridge between the human world and the cosmic order. In ancient Egypt, the annual flooding of the Nile was the lifeblood of the empire, and its timing was everything. The priests of Heliopolis, watching from their observatory temples, knew that the first pre-dawn appearance of the star Sirius always preceded the floodwaters. Their ability to announce its coming was not just a scientific forecast, it was a divine proclamation that secured their immense influence over the pharaoh and the people. They held the calendar of life itself. Far to the east, in the bustling heart of Babylon, the relationship was even more direct. Astrologer priests meticulously recorded planetary movements and celestial events, interpreting them as messages from the gods. A lunar eclipse might signal the impending passing of a king, while the position of Mars could advise for or against going to war. These celestial readers became the most trusted advisors in the royal court, their scrolls of cuneiform data as powerful as any army. Their authority rested on a demonstrated ability to predict, to bring order to the apparent chaos of the heavens. This knowledge was not for everyone. It was a closely guarded secret, passed down through generations within elite families or through rigorous initiation. A Maya daykeeper, for instance, spent years memorizing the complex interlocking cycles of their sacred and solar calendars. He knew the precise days that were auspicious for planting maize, for conducting a marriage, or for launching an attack. This monopoly on cosmic information created a powerful social hierarchy, where a small group of individuals could direct the fate of entire civilizations. They were the original scientists, patiently gathering data over centuries, developing advanced mathematics to track planetary cycles. Yet their work was never purely for knowledge's sake. It was always woven into the fabric of faith and governance. Their power, however, came with a profound vulnerability. What happened when the sky did not behave as predicted? A drought that followed a promised rain, or an eclipse that arrived unannounced, could shatter the illusion of divine connection and trigger a crisis of faith that toppled dynasties. The very source of their authority was also their greatest risk. To understand these figures is to see the ancient temples not as silent ruins, but as the vibrant laboratories and command centers they once were. Places where a chosen few held conversations with the cosmos and, in doing so, shaped the course of human history. Yet this entire celestial conversation rests upon a foundation that itself is slowly turning. Earth spins on its axis like a wobbling top, tracing a vast, invisible circle in the heavens over a period of 26,000 years. This is the precession of the equinoxes, a slow motion clock in the sky where the backdrop of stars against which the sun rises on the equinox gradually shifts, moving backward through the 12 constellations of the zodiac. The full cycle is so immense it defies easy comprehension, a time span that stretches from the last ice age into the distant future. Mainstream history credits the Greek astronomer Hipparchus with its discovery around 150 BC. But a compelling and controversial question lingers. Could this grand cosmic rhythm have been understood far earlier by the very builders of the world's oldest monuments? Some researchers look to the Great Pyramid of Giza and see more than a tomb. They propose its air shafts are precisely aligned with key stars as they would have appeared not at the time of the pyramid's generally accepted construction, but millennia before, around 10,500 BC. At that remote date, they argue, the three pyramids of Giza perfectly mirrored the three stars of Orion's belt in the night sky. This is not just an alignment for a single year, but a snapshot of the sky frozen in time by immense stone pointers. If true, this suggests a lost epoch of scientific observation, a civilization advanced enough to track a cycle spanning hundreds of human generations, and then encode that knowledge into architecture meant to last for ages. Such an idea challenges our entire understanding of human progress, proposing a forgotten chapter where astronomical genius flourished and then was lost. We are left to wonder whether the myths of a great year, a cyclical age of the world found in cultures from the Greeks to the Hindus, are the faint echoes of this ancient understanding. The very stability of these immense celestial clocks, the predictable return of the seasons and the slow, stately dance of the constellations may have been what our ancestors sought to mirror and control with their temples. They built not just to mark a single sunrise, but to anchor their world against the turning of a cosmic wheel, so vast we are only now rediscovering its true scale. This recurring pattern etched across the continent's presents one of history's great riddles. Was the celestial clock discovered many times over, or was it a single, ancient idea that traveled the world? On one hand, the independent invention theory offers a beautifully simple explanation. The sun, moon, and stars are a universal inheritance, a constant spectacle for every human community. The practical need to track seasons for planting and harvest would naturally lead any developing society to become sky watchers. The impulse to build monuments marking these cycles seems a logical, even inevitable, progression of human ingenuity. It is a story of parallel discovery where different minds, separated by oceans, arrived at the same profound conclusions about time and order. Yet the sheer similarity of some concepts gives us pause. Why do we find the symbol of a feathered or plumed serpent, a deity intimately linked with the sun and Venus, appearing in both ancient Mesoamerica and in the mythology of distant cultures? The idea of a world axis, a central pillar connecting the earth, the heavens, and the underworld, is another echo found from the Norse Yggdrasil to the Inca's cosmological vision. Could these be archetypes of the human mind, arising independently from our shared consciousness, or are they faint whispers of a much older, shared story? The diffusionist theory dares to suggest that long before recorded history, navigators and explorers might have crossed oceans, carrying not just goods but the seeds of knowledge, the principles of astronomy, the layouts of temples, the stories of the gods. This idea of a lost, seafaring culture spreading a primordial cosmology is captivating, but concrete proof remains just beyond our grasp, leaving it in the realm of compelling speculation. Perhaps the most powerful truth lies not in choosing one answer over the other, but in acknowledging the global pattern itself. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia, humanity repeatedly looked up and saw not random points of light, but a grand, intelligible design. This shared quest to build meaning from the stars, to anchor our fleeting lives to the permanence of the cosmos, may be the deepest connection of all. It speaks to a fundamental thread in the human spirit, a universal urge to find our place within the great turning of the celestial wheel. The true genius of these ancient astronomers lies not in what they had, but in what they achieved without it. To align a multi-ton stone with the rising of a specific star, they began with the simplest of tools, a single wooden stake driven into the earth known as a gnomon. By patiently tracking the path of its shadow throughout the day, they could map the sun's journey across the sky. The shortest shadow of the day pointed unequivocally to true north, while the longest and shortest shadows of the year marked the solstices with unwavering accuracy. This was not advanced engineering, it was a profound understanding of geometry written in light and shadow. They turned the entire horizon into their laboratory, using natural notches in distant hills or carefully placed marker stones to record the precise rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and planets. On a still, clear night, a simple trench filled with water could become a perfect reflecting pool, offering a stable, magnified view of the stars by observing their shimmering reflections rather than straining to look upward. The transfer of these celestial observations into monumental architecture required another layer of innovation. They used ropes and pegs to create massive geometric designs on the ground, laying out the precise foundations for circles, ellipses, and pyramids using standardized units of measurement like the royal cubit in Egypt. The true instrument, however, was time itself. This was not a project for a single lifetime, but a cultural tradition spanning generations. A master builder would teach his apprentice not from a book, but through hands-on work, passing down accumulated knowledge of the sun's subtle shifts and the moon's slow dance. This oral tradition, refined over centuries, created a living library of celestial data. It demonstrates that the engine of discovery can be fueled by meticulous observation and a deep, shared purpose. A humbling reminder that our own technological world stands on the shoulders of these patient, Stone Age scientists who first learned to read the sky. The cosmos itself was a grand, repeating story of renewal. For the people who raised these stones, the sun did not simply set each evening, it died, only to be miraculously reborn with the dawn. The moon vanished into shadow and then swelled back into fullness. This celestial rhythm of loss and return was the ultimate reassurance, a promise written in light that their own lives were part of a larger, unbreakable cycle. This is why their temples were far more than observatories. They were stages for the most important drama of all. When the winter solstice sun pierced the inner chamber of Newgrange, it was not just a beam of light, it was the sun god himself, returning to the womb of the earth to be born again. The people gathered in that darkness were not mere spectators, they were witnesses to a divine rebirth, their presence a vital part of the ritual that ensured the sun's journey would continue. In that moment, the boundary between myth and reality dissolved. The community, through its shared observation and ceremony, became an active participant in sustaining the cosmic order. They were not just predicting the turning of the year, they were helping to turn it. This symbolic power transformed a practical calendar into the heartbeat of a culture. At Chichen Itza, the descending serpent was not a passive symbol. It was the god Kukulkan arriving in their midst. The pyramid became a conduit for divine presence, its architecture a script for a celestial play performed just twice a year. This event reinforced the social order, validating the authority of the rulers who were seen as intermediaries with these powerful forces. The true function of these sites was to make the invisible visible, to give tangible form to the eternal rhythms that governed everything from the harvest to the human soul. They were built to stave off the ultimate fear, the terror of chaos, of a sun that did not return, of a cycle broken. By perfectly aligning their greatest works with the heavens, our ancestors were not just tracking time, they were weaving their lives into its very fabric, finding comfort and meaning in the great turning wheel of the sky. This emerging field of study, known as archaeoastronomy, gives us the scientific toolkit to move from wonder to understanding. It is the dedicated discipline that deciphers how ancient cultures perceived the sky, how they applied that knowledge, and the profound cultural role the heavens played. By weaving together the threads of archaeology, anthropology, astronomy, and history, it builds a coherent picture from silent stones and scattered clues. A researcher in this field might spend days with a theodolite, meticulously measuring the orientation of a single standing stone. They will then consult ethnographic records from descendant communities and use sophisticated software to roll back the clock, reconstructing the exact night sky as it appeared thousands of years ago. This rigorous, interdisciplinary approach was vital in confirming the intentionality of the sun dagger at Chaco Canyon, transforming a curious light show into a validated cultural calendar. It also serves as a necessary filter, helping to separate credible insights from sensationalized fringe theories that often lack evidential support. Yet the work is fraught with interpretive challenges. One significant hurdle is the selection effect. With a vast temple complex containing dozens of alignments, it is tempting to focus only on the few lines that point to significant celestial events, while ignoring the many that do not. This can create a misleading picture, as if every wall and window was designed for the stars. An even greater challenge is penetrating the symbolic mind. Without written records, how can we ever truly know what the Pleiades cluster meant to a Bronze Age farmer, or why a spiral carving was the target for a solstice beam? The alignment is a fact, but its meaning is a locked door. Despite these complexities, archaeoastronomy provides a robust framework for testing our ideas about the past. It demands evidence, encourages skepticism, and builds a picture of our ancestors' cosmic pursuits that is grounded in data rather than fantasy. It is the key that is patiently turning the lock, slowly allowing the stones to speak in a language we are just beginning to understand. That same ancient drive to measure the sky now lives within the phone in your pocket. Every time you check the time, navigate to a new location, or glance at a calendar, you are accessing a legacy of knowledge that stretches back to the priest astronomers of Babylon and the builders of Stonehenge. The very structure of our day is a gift from the past. Our 24-hour day, our 60-minute hour, and our 360-degree circle are all direct descendants of the Babylonian base 60 counting system, a mathematical framework born from their meticulous tracking of celestial cycles. The solar calendar that organizes our year, refined through the Julian and later Gregorian reforms, finds its ultimate origin in the same solar rhythms that dictated when to raise the stones of Callanish or when the Nile would flood. Even the 7-day week is thought by many scholars to be linked to the 7 classical planets visible to the naked eye: the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. This is not a coincidence, but the echo of an unbroken conversation with the cosmos. It represents one of humanity's most profound and enduring intellectual traditions, a continuous thread of inquiry connecting the megalithic astronomer patiently watching a lunar standstill with Galileo turning his telescope to the heavens, and with the modern astrophysicist analyzing data from a space-based observatory. Our current pinnacles of precision, from the atomic clocks that govern global finance to the global positioning system that can guide you to a specific street corner, are built upon this foundational understanding. The GPS satellites orbiting high above the Earth constantly transmit signals that are essentially extremely precise timestamps. For your device to calculate its position, it must account for subtle relativistic effects, corrections for both the satellite's speed and the Earth's gravity, a level of accuracy that boggles the mind. Yet this entire system rests on the fundamental human realization that the universe operates according to predictable, mathematical rules, a truth first written not in code, but in the alignment of massive stones with the moving sun. The quest that began with a gnommon's shadow on the ground has culminated in a network of atomic clocks that define a second not by the heavens, but by the immutable vibration of a cesium atom. This journey from stone circle to satellite reflects a timeless human need to find order in the cosmos and to mark our place within its grand, turning wheel. This vibrant field of study, however, is a landscape with two very different maps. On one hand, you have the meticulous, evidence-based work of academic archaeoastronomy. On the other, a world of captivating speculation and sensational fringe theories that often capture the public imagination. Ideas like the Orion correlation theory, which posits that the three pyramids of Giza are a perfect terrestrial mirror of the three stars of Orion's belt, are undeniably compelling. They offer a grand, unified vision of the past. Similarly, claims that the vast Nazca lines in Peru were landing strips for extraterrestrial visitors ignite a sense of wonder. Yet mainstream researchers point out a critical gap. These narratives frequently lack the robust, peer-reviewed evidence required to move from intriguing possibility to accepted historical understanding. The central pitfall that scholars warn against is known as presentism, the act of imposing our modern worldview, our values, and our knowledge onto ancient minds. We see a line on a map and immediately think of an airport runway, a concept utterly foreign to the people who created the geoglyphs. We perceive a mathematical precision in a monument's layout and assume its builders shared our scientific objectives. The danger is in conflating a fascinating coincidence with deliberate intent, or in isolating a single alignment while ignoring the broader archaeological context that suggests a more complex, often more mundane purpose. A stone might align with a star, but was it placed for that reason, or was it simply the most stable foundation available? Yet, to dismiss all unconventional ideas would be to stifle a vital part of the scientific process. These controversies, even the most speculative ones, serve a valuable purpose. They challenge established paradigms and force academia to re-examine its own assumptions with fresh eyes. They ask difficult questions that sometimes lead to genuine breakthroughs, pushing researchers to gather better data and refine their methods. The true skill for any explorer of these mysteries lies in navigating this complex terrain with a balanced approach. It requires an open mind, willing to consider extraordinary possibilities, but tempered by a firm commitment to scientific rigor and methodological skepticism. It is the delicate art of separating an inspired hypothesis from an unsubstantiated fantasy, a discipline as crucial to understanding our past as any trowel or theodolite. The very sky our ancestors observed was a different canvas depending on where they stood on the earth. In the vast, rain-scarce deserts of Egypt and Mesopotamia, the atmosphere offered a crystal-clear window to the cosmos. Night after night, the stars blazed with unwavering intensity, and the sun's path was a predictable arc across an endless blue dome. In this environment, solar and stellar observation naturally flourished, leading to the precise calendars that could forecast the Nile's life-giving flood. But travel northwest to the damp, temperate shores of the British Isles, and the celestial view transformed. Here, the sky was often a blanket of grey, with the sun hiding for days on end. In such a climate, a culture like the one that built Stonehenge would have found a more reliable companion in the moon. Its softer light could pierce thin cloud cover, and its complex cycles, unfolding over decades, provided a steady, predictable rhythm even when the sun was absent. This was not a lesser form of astronomy, but a brilliant adaptation to local conditions. They learned to read the one celestial clock that was always visible to them. This principle reaches its ultimate expression with the Polynesian voyagers. For them, the ocean was a road and the stars were their signposts. Their very survival during immense open water journeys depended on an encyclopedic knowledge of star paths, the way specific stars rose and set on the horizon, acting as a celestial compass. They navigated millions of square miles of trackless Pacific by memory and the silent, steady guidance of the night sky. The practical needs imposed by the environment were the ultimate drivers of this innovation. Predicting the annual monsoon in India was not an abstract exercise. It was essential for planting rice and ensuring a society's food supply. This urgent need for precision is what fueled the development of incredibly accurate calendars. Even the very stones they used were a product of their land. A culture situated on a limestone plateau, like the builders of Göbekli Tepe, worked with the massive blocks they found nearby, while a society in a region with accessible bluestone, like the architects of Stonehenge, undertook epic journeys to transport their chosen material. This environmental influence does not make their achievements smaller. Instead, it reveals a profound truth about human ingenuity. Faced with the unique challenges and opportunities of their homeland, from the desert to the rainforest to the open ocean, our ancestors looked upward and decoded the specific celestial messages they needed to hear. They all observed the same universe, but each culture learned to ask it a different question, weaving a global tapestry of knowledge as diverse and beautiful as the world itself. Yet the most profound mystery these sites hold is not how they were built, but why their builders' knowledge so often fell silent. The great celestial calculators were abandoned, their purpose forgotten, their wisdom lost to the ages. Göbekli Tepe, that staggering first temple, was not left to decay. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, its people deliberately and carefully buried their sacred enclosures under tons of earth, preserving them for a future they would never see but choosing to walk away. The ancestral Pueblones, the master astronomers of Chaco Canyon, simply left their great houses and their sun Dagger behind, migrating to new lands. The sprawling Maya cities, with their precise Venus tables and descending serpents, were gradually reclaimed by the jungle. In each case, a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, hard-won over centuries, appears to have simply faded away. This widespread phenomenon points to a deep vulnerability in human civilization. The transmission of complex knowledge requires stability. It needs generations of teachers and students, a society prosperous enough to support a specialized class of thinkers, and a cultural narrative that values this long-term pursuit. When that delicate balance is disrupted, the thread is broken. Environmental shifts are a recurring theme. A prolonged period of drought can force a population to scatter, turning their focus from the stars to immediate survival. The social structures that supported the astronomer priests would have been among the first casualties of such hardship. In other instances, the loss was deliberate. The Spanish conquest of the Americas brought with it a systematic campaign to dismantle indigenous worldviews. Countless codices were burned, temples were torn down, and Intihuatanas were shattered in an effort to erase a cosmology seen as pagan. The knowledge was not just lost, it was actively suppressed. This pattern of cultural amnesia is a humbling lesson. Progress is not a one-way street. A society can master the cycles of the heavens and then, through a combination of environmental pressure, social collapse, or outside force, forget what it once knew. The very act of burying Göbekli Tepe can be seen as a final, respectful act of preservation, a conscious interment of sacred knowledge until a time when the world was ready to understand it again. That we are now the ones uncovering these layers, piecing together their celestial logic, gives our modern exploration a profound urgency. It reminds us that our own grasp on knowledge is fragile, and that the great conversation between humanity and the cosmos requires careful tending, lest its echoes too fade into silence. Our own minds may be the greatest celestial calculator of all. Cognitive archaeologists point to a fundamental human trait, an innate drive to find patterns in the world around us. For our ancestors, the natural world was a place of beautiful but terrifying chaos, where storms could arrive without warning and food sources could vanish. Against this backdrop of uncertainty, the heavens offered a profound solace. The sun always rose, the moon consistently waxed and waned, and the stars returned to their same positions with unwavering fidelity. This was a perfect, predictable order, a grand, silent clockwork that stood in stark contrast to the unpredictable Earth. By building monuments that mirrored these celestial cycles, ancient people were not merely tracking time, they were constructing pockets of meaning and certainty. They were building psychological anchors, creating a sense of control by physically aligning their world with the one part of existence that never failed its schedule. The sky became the first universal calendar, clock, and compass, a reliable map for the human soul, but this need went beyond mere intellectual comfort. Standing under a canopy of countless stars, feeling dwarfed by the immense scale of the cosmos, naturally evokes a deep sense of awe. This feeling of the numinous, of encountering something vastly greater than oneself, is the very wellspring of religious experience. To build a temple that could capture a single sunbeam on the winter solstice, or frame the rising of a specific star, was an act of profound co-creation. It was a way to invite the divine into the human realm, to feel a tangible connection to the eternal. In that moment of perfect alignment, when the stone and the star met, the boundary between the earthly and the celestial dissolved. This deep-seated psychological drive, this yearning to find our place in the grand scheme, is a thread that connects the hunter-gatherers at Göbekli Tepe to the engineers of the James Webb Space Telescope. We are all, in our own ways, building monuments to the cosmos, seeking to understand the patterns of the universe, and in doing so, hoping to find a reflection of ourselves. The stones of Mnajdra hold the sun's schedule in their very geometry. On the islands of Malta, a temple complex built over 4,000 years ago captures the light with a precision that feels almost supernatural. The lower temple is not a single structure, but three conjoined buildings, each one whispering a different secret of the sky. The central temple's main axis is a perfect celestial arrow, aimed directly at the point where the sun rises on the equinox. On those 2 days each year when day and night hang in perfect balance, the first golden rays of dawn travel unerringly down a long corridor to strike a specific stone slab deep within the sanctuary. This was no chance event. It was a moment calculated and engineered into the very bones of the building, but the architects went further still. The southern temple is aligned to greet the low, distant sun of the winter solstice, while another carefully placed opening frames the high, powerful sunrise of the summer solstice. This created a complete, stone-calibrated calendar, marking the sun's journey across the year with unwavering accuracy. For the people who built it, this was the rhythm of life itself. The solstices and equinoxes dictated when to plant seeds, when to expect the rains, and when to gather for the ceremonies that honored the sun's life-giving power. The temple was their almanac, their sacred space, and their communal clock, all carved from the local Globigerina limestone. To achieve this, the builders employed a sophisticated corbelled architecture, carefully overlapping stones to create stable, domed chambers that have endured for millennia. This technical skill, combined with their deep celestial knowledge, points to a highly organized society governed by the turning of the heavens. The silent, sun-washed ruins of Mnajdra do not just represent a place of ceremony. They are the legacy of a people who sought to build order from the cosmos, embedding the certainty of the sun into the very heart of their world. This fusion of stone and story reveals a fundamental truth about the ancient mind. The predictable rhythms of the sky offered more than just a calendar. They provided a stage for the great dramas of the gods. For the Egyptians, the story of Osiris was not confined to papyrus scrolls. It was written across the night sky. The god's murder and his miraculous rebirth were physically enacted each year by the constellation we call Orion. The stars of Orion would vanish below the horizon, as if swallowed by the underworld, only to re-emerge later, triumphant and reborn. This celestial event mirrored the central hope of their entire religious system, the promise of life after death. In Babylon, the epic creation story of Marduk battling the chaotic sea goddess Tiamat was not merely a tale of a long-forgotten past. Scholars suggest it was linked to observable celestial phenomena, perhaps the sun's victory over the watery darkness of night or the seasonal struggle between constellations. The myth explained why the world existed with order instead of chaos, and the repeating cycles of the heavens provided the proof that this divine order was eternally maintained. This connection transformed abstract stories into tangible, observable reality. When the people of Chichen Itza witnessed the slithering shadow of Kukulkan descend the pyramid staircase, they were not watching a simple light show. They were seeing their most important myth of divine return physically manifest in their world. The architecture made the story real. This is the core of the relationship. The temple served as the validation point for the myth. When the sun dagger at Chaco Canyon pierced the heart of the spiral petroglyph on the precise day predicted, it did more than mark a date. It demonstrated that the priesthood understood the rules of the cosmos, that their interpretation of the divine narrative was correct. This created an incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing system. The myth gave meaning to the celestial event, and the celestial event, in turn, proved the truth of the myth. This symbiotic relationship anchored entire societies to what they perceived as a divine plan, providing comfort and order in a world that could often feel unpredictable and frightening. To carefully study the astronomical alignments of an ancient temple is therefore to do more than just understand an old calendar. It is to begin decoding the very mythology of its builders, to listen for the stories they told themselves about how the world began, why the sun rises, and what role humanity plays in the great turning wheel of the cosmos. The silent stones have kept their secrets for thousands of years, but we are finally learning their language. A technological revolution is now sweeping through the field of archaeoastronomy, giving us eyes to see what was once invisible. In the dense jungles of Central America, a technology called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is firing laser pulses from aircraft to digitally strip away the thick vegetation. This has revealed vast, hidden cityscapes and networks of roads, suggesting that entire civilizations were far larger and more complex than we ever knew. With a canopy rendered transparent, researchers can now analyze the alignments of these newly discovered structures, searching for patterns that connect them to the sun, moon, and stars on a continental scale. Meanwhile, at sites we thought we understood, like Stonehenge, ground-penetrating radar is painting a picture of what lies beneath the soil without ever turning a shovel. This non-invasive tool has detected a ring of deep pits and other subterranean features that may have held massive timber posts, completely reshaping our understanding of the monument's original form and its potential celestial functions. We are no longer just looking at the stones we can see, we are listening to the echoes of an entire hidden landscape. The most profound tool, however, might be software that can wind back the cosmic clock. Astronomers can now model the precession of the equinoxes with breathtaking precision, recreating the exact night sky as it appeared from any location on Earth on any given date in the deep past. We can sit in a virtual Göbekli Tepe and watch the star Sirius rise precisely between the pillars of enclosure D, or stand in the center of the Great Pyramid and see Orion's belt perfectly framed in an air shaft. This is not guesswork, it is a digital window into the past, allowing us to test alignments with a level of accuracy the original builders would have achieved only through generations of patient observation. From the macro view of satellite imagery identifying colossal geoglyphs in the deserts of Arabia and Peru, to the micro-analysis of laser scans that record every tool mark on a standing stone, these technologies are converging to tell a new, more complete story. They suggest that the number of sites encoding celestial knowledge is far greater than we ever imagined, and that our current understanding is merely the first chapter of a much longer book. With every new scan and digital model, fundamental questions grow more pressing. Did these cultures truly understand the grand 26,000-year cycle of precession? How was such complex knowledge, requiring observations over hundreds of years, faithfully passed down through oral traditions without being diluted or lost? And what is the full, astonishing story of Göbekli Tepe, the site that continues to upend our timeline of civilization? The future of this exploration promises to peel back even more layers, continually reshaping our view of human ingenuity and our timeless connection to the cosmos. From the towering pillars of Göbekli Tepe to the precise solstice light of Newgrange, we have traced a global pattern etched in stone. These celestial calculators represent a breathtaking fusion of intellect and spirit, where astronomy, engineering, and mythology converge to create sacred clocks. Our ancestors were not primitive scientists. They were master integrators who wove the predictable rhythms of the cosmos into the very fabric of their societies. They looked at the chaotic world around them and sought reassurance in the one realm that never failed its schedule, the turning sky. By building monuments that mirrored these grand cycles, they created pockets of order and meaning, anchoring their communities to something eternal. This shared human endeavor stretches across continents and millennia, revealing a profound truth about our species. We are pattern seekers, driven by a deep need to find our place within the universe. The story of these temples challenges the simple, linear narrative of human progress. It shows us that profound understanding is not a steady accumulation, but a flickering flame. Great knowledge can be kindled, can burn brightly for centuries, and then can be lost, only to be patiently rekindled by future generations. We are part of that same cycle of discovery. The philosopher Carl Sagan once reflected that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. The builders of these first temples were the pioneers of that grand, ongoing journey. They were the original cosmic cartographers, mapping the heavens not on paper but in the enduring language of stone. We invite you to carry this perspective forward. The next time you look up at the night sky, remember that you are gazing at the same celestial clock that guided the architects of Stonehenge and the priests of Babylon. If you ever have the chance to stand within one of these ancient sites, feel the weight of that history, and we would love to hear from you. What part of this cosmic connection resonates most with you? Share your own thoughts and questions in the comments below. For more journeys into the world's greatest historical mysteries, be sure to subscribe.